evening, everyone, and welcome to our YouTube. This is Through the Fire, real talk, real reality podcast. We have been diving some into true crime, and Brian Koberger and the Idaho 4, of course, has been topic. There has been a lot going on. There has been a lot of drama. There has been a lot of lies and just people being false witnesses. Some of what people say may hold true, but when you can be debunked, you can be debunked. I don't understand. This is for people's lives. These families watch. Even if they didn't watch YouTube all the time, someone they know could and could point them in the direction. I mean, if this was me, my family, I would not want all this going on. Okay, but we do want to uncover the truth. Again, I listen to a lot of different true crime podcasts, but one thing does hold true. You don't have to actually prove somebody did something, or you don't have to prove they did not do something. Reasonable doubt will go a long way. And the things that we're finding, if they cannot be used to actually dismiss this case, I think every state may be a little different on that. I'm not sure. But at the very least, if they can't be used to dismiss the case, this stuff will have a lot of reasonable doubt brought in. So we've all heard, different things about what Idaho State Police, ISP, has been involved with, what they haven't. A couple of creators have talked about Dr. Moore and his case. He was accused of killing another chiropractor in, I believe it was Idaho Falls, Bonner's Ferry, or he lived in Idaho Falls. He was in Bonner's Ferry, something of that nature. But anyways, this chiropractor did not do this, but the officers that were involved in the investigation lied about a 911 call. They said that Dr. Drake's wife actually called 911, and she did not. She said in a couple of interviews that she did not call 911. They also lied on a PCA about witness testimony. So the same officers involved in this were some of the main officers investigating the Idaho 4. Why would they do this? I don't know. The only thing I can come up with is the state thought they was going to keep it quiet by keeping it, everything concealed, and nobody was aware that, not just YouTubers, but anybody else just that studies case law or true crime would say, hey, wait a minute, we look up what's going on, and just the misinformation and the shadiness or the uncertainty in this. You look this up and you find it about these officers, and then we know why Ann Taylor requested training records for these officers. I mean, just to get record that they were the ones investigating, that's all she needs, because all of this, like I said, if it does not dismiss the case, they can't holler objection. It has nothing to do with it. These are the main officers involved. Yes, it does. If they lied one time, wouldn't they lie again? Why are they still on, the force? Really? This is a serious case. This took the lives of 4 innocent young adults. And there's another one that could go to death row for this. At any rate, I'm not really sure. I think Brian Koberger's involved. I haven't made up my mind if he was an innocent bystander that got lured there, or if there was other issues involved. I don't believe he's the one that stabbed all of them. I believe he had a partner. I don't think he did this alone. So at any rate, if the jury, if this even goes to trial, if the jury is able to find enough probability, I don't think he'll get the death penalty, because I just don't see how. I don't think he did it alone, but I think there's enough reasonable doubt in this case that, I mean, I just don't know how a jury would decide this right now if this is all there is. We don't know that that's all there is. I would think that if the prosecution had something more, then they would be saying something when Ann compelled, motion to compel, this and that and the other. I'm not sure where Ann is going to go with this, but I just thought that it would be good to bring it to everyone's attention. I'm going to go through it kind of fast. I've been trying to go do lives. I had to get a streaming service that I'm getting set up now, so I just did this as recording because I haven't posted anything in a while. But this is the actual case of Moore versus City of Bonners Ferry. So I'm going to go over this. I just shared my screen. I did not go on video. I will when I go live, but it's hard. My camera is really bad on my computer, and it just does better with a streaming service. It makes it better resolution. So I'm just sharing my screen with this. You can find this. Honestly, the way I found this was I just Googled, but you can Google Moore versus City of Bonners Ferry, Idaho, and I'm sure it's going to come up. I just downloaded the PDF free, and then I printed it, and then I have it where I can share my screen as well. Okay, so before we go over this, I just want to let everybody know my channel is not just true crime, so I'm also doing some things with the Operation Underground Railroad. That is the people that go and save our children from sex trafficking, things of that nature. I think they also do some human trafficking, but I know that they save the kids. I have a whole report. I'm going to do that on live as well. So it'll be in the next couple of days. I will probably announce it first, so I hope that people can join me. I really don't have a whole lot of followers yet. I have like 8. I'm not doing that just for this. I actually like doing this. I didn't know that I would, but I do. It's kind of relaxing, but it would be nice to have people that at least can have discussion with while I'm live on some of the things that I'm going to be doing. I also do truth finds, exposing the government, exposing the people that are not in it for the people, to keep America free. We have a lot of threats. We have threats to our land. It's just a whole nother way to turn that this channel will go. I will do some true crime. If there's certain things people want me to do or look into, I will. I'm just going to kind of mix it up. All of these things are important. This case is important because, again, it still, I think, is exposing people that have a hand in a lot of different things. But let's get to it. So, Moore versus City of Bonners Ferry, Idaho. It says, decided July 17th, 2023. So this is fairly new. This is a United States District Court, District of Idaho. It's a, legal case. This is going on right now. I'm not going to read all these numbers, 2:22, all that. I'm not going to do that. The date is 7/17/2023. Daniel Lee Moore and Karen Moore, husband and wife, plaintiffs versus the City of Bonners Ferry. Brian Zimmerman, Martin Ryan, Michael Van Leuven, Gary Tolson, and John and Jane Doe, iDAHO, as agents of Bonners Ferry Police Department defendants. B. Lynn Windmill. Let's see. This is the introduction. Several motions are pending before the court. Plaintiffs Daniel Moore and Karen Moore asked to amend their complaint. Docket, I'm sure that's what that means, DKT 27. Defendants move for judgment on the pleadings as to counts 1 and 2 Docket 22, Docket 23. For the reasons explained below, the court will partially grant and partially deny the plaintiff's motion and will grant the defendant's motion. Relevant background. As discussed below, both issues before the court require applying what is functionally, and I'm sorry, y'all. I'm reading my paper, so that's why I forgot about the screen. Sorry. Okay. As such, the court must take all well-pleaded allegations of material fact and true and constitute the facts in a light most favorable to the plaintiffs according to reaction of facts is drawn from the complaint. Okay, Christopher Brian Drake was murdered just after seeing his last patient on the evening of March 12th, 2020. The killer fired the fatal shot through the window of Dr. Drake's Bonners Ferry office. Okay, now this doctor Drake, I think he lived in Idaho Falls, and he drove to Bonners Ferry because he had an office there like 2 or 3 times a week. Okay, soon after the March 24th, 2020 Idaho State Police detectives interviewed plaintiff Daniel Moore. Dr. Moore, who is also a chiropractor with a practice in Bonners Ferry, denied having any involvement with Dr. Drake or his death. Following the interview, law enforcement learned that 3 days after the murder, a gas leak at Dr. Moore's office had left him unconscious. Law enforcement suspected that Dr. Moore had killed Dr. Drake and had attempted suicide because of overwhelming moral distress. Pursuing the theory, on May 6, 2020, detectives again interviewed Dr. Moore at his office. Once more, Dr. Moore denied having met or murdered Dr. Drake. I'm sorry. Months later, on August 27, 2020, law enforcement decided to have another go at Dr. Moore. Defendants Van Leeuwen and Tolson requested that Dr. Moore bring his wife's .380 APC Ruger handgun to the Boundary County Sheriff's Annex for inspection and inspection in connection with their investigation into Dr. Drake's death. Upon Moore's arrival, law enforcement instructed him to empty his pockets, frisked him, took his car keys, and explained they would take him to a secure area to check for weapons. In the secure area, an interrogation room, detectives Van Leeuwen and Tolson began questioning Dr. Moore. Soon, Detective Van Leeuwen told Dr. Moore that law enforcement suspected he had murdered Dr. Drake and then attempted to kill himself because he felt guilty. Dr. Moore denied both accusations. After about 8 minutes into the interrogation, Detective Van Leeuwen informed Dr. Moore of his Miranda rights. Dr. Moore reiterated that he did not have a relationship with Dr. Drake and or a part in his death. The accusation and denial back and forth continued for some time. Eventually, Dr. Moore said, "Well, I didn't shoot him, and I'm sorry, but that's what it is." He raised both palms facing the detectives in a stop gesture and said, "So I guess you're going to do that. I charge him with murder. Then I need to go get an attorney." In response, Detectives Van Leeuwen and Tolson left the room, telling Dr. Moore to sit tight and promising that they would be right back. 45 minutes later, another law enforcement defendant Ryan, who had social connections to Dr. Moore, came into the room. He reinitiated the interrogation, which followed the same pattern. Assistant Chief Ryan leveled accusations, and Dr. Moore repeated his denials. Eventually, Dr. Moore said, "I need to talk to an attorney." Then, Assistant Chief Ryan said he was done with the interrogation and asked Dr. Moore if he wanted to continue. Yet again, Dr. Moore said, "I think I need to talk to an attorney." Assistant Chief Ryan stood at the door and told Dr. Moore, "I want the truth. I want you to admit the truth. You're killing me, man." Dr. Moore asked whether the Assistant Chief Ryan wanted to speak to him without an attorney. Assistant Chief Ryan said he did not want Dr. Moore to do anything against his will and that, "I'm not trying to pull anything out of you but the truth." The interrogation continued along the lines at length. Eventually, Assistant Chief Ryan left the room and Dr. Moore took a bathroom break. Dr. Moore and Assistant Chief Ryan both returned to the room, and the interrogation continued. Assistant Chief Ryan suggested the prior request. I did it again. I'm sorry, y'all. Suggested the prior request for cancel and were ambiguous and told Dr. Moore he needed to tell me what you want to do. Dr. Moore replied that he wanted to speak with Assistant Chief Ryan, who he trusted, but reaffirmed the desire to have a lawyer present. Assistant Chief Ryan asked him to elaborate. Dr. Moore again said he would like to speak with Assistant Chief Ryan, but asked whether, given the circumstances, it would be prudent to consult with counsel about his options. Finally, Assistant Chief Ryan left the room. Almost immediately thereafter, an ISP detective brought Dr. Moore water and a blanket. Dr. Moore asked what was happening to his car and his property. The detective explained that law enforcement was towing his automobile and searching his home. Dr. Moore then asked to speak with Assistant Chief Ryan one more time. When Assistant Chief Ryan came back, Dr. Moore asked what he should do if he doesn't have an attorney. Assistant Chief Ryan and Dr. Moore went back and forth about counsel over and over. Eventually, Dr. Moore stopped asking for counsel and confessed to the murder. The total interrogation lasted about 3 hours. Law enforcement charged Dr. Moore with second-degree murder that day. At the preliminary hearing on October 2nd, 2020, the confession was the only evidence presented that implicated Dr. Moore in Dr. Drake's death. Dr. Moore moved to suppress his confession as a violation of his Miranda rights. The district court granted the motion on February 12, 2021, finding that law enforcement violated his Miranda rights to counsel and coerced the confession. Dr. Moore then moved to dismiss the charges. The district court granted that motion. The prosecution appealed the district court's findings of coercion and decision to dismiss the criminal charges, but not the finding of a Miranda violation. The Idaho Supreme Court issued an opinion on August 31st, 2022. I'm still doing it, y'all. I'm sorry. Okay. Moore's Miranda rights were violated, but that he was not coerced into making confession. State versus Moore on the number Idaho 2022. In the case now before the court, Dr. Moore brings claims under 1983 for alleged violations of his constitutional rights and state law claims for negligent infliction of emotional distress. Amendment of the complaint. The Moores have moved to file an amendment complaint, docket 27. The proposed amendments clarify that the claims in the counts 1 and 2 concern only Dr. Moore. The numbers. Amendments further correct a typo ID at 162 and add reference to the Idaho Supreme Court decision issued after the case was filed. Defendants do not oppose the charges, docket 29, docket 32. The court will grant the motion with respect to those paragraphs. Well, let me see where I am. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay. The new complaint also adds details about the alleged impact of the defendant's actions on Ms. Moore. Docket 27 at 527. Ms. Moore further seeks to add 1983 claim for violation of her substantive and due process rights against the defendant Ryan Van Leeuwen Tolson and John and Jane Doe IX. Proposed court VI incorporates each of the allegations of this complaint as it fully set forth herein and further alleges that the injuries inflicted upon Dr. Moore by the defendants under color of state law as described and detailed herein adversely impacted the endurance, intimacy, way of life, and harmony of the Moore's marriage. Said defendant's actions as detailed herein thereby improperly interfered with Karen Moore's personal right to the services, society, and companionship of her husband, denying her due process of law. ID 224-26. Defendants oppose those proposed amendments, docket 29 and docket 32. This just explains that they, how close they were and how it affected them. Because the Moores timely filed the motion to amend their complaint, Rule 15A 2S liberal standard for amendment governs. The rule permits to party amend its pleadings as a matter of course with the opposing party written consent or with the court's leave. Okay, so this is saying basically, they had him confess. I don't even think they even questioned Brian Koberger. They did not do any, take his car in for investigation first. They didn't do any of that. So I'm not really sure. Some people think that they just figured they would get more. I don't think that's the case. I think that they thought that they could get away with doing this. Also, the FBI told them not to use the DNA, which to me, that means the FBI does not have resources of how they got that DNA, and that's why they told them not to use it, because they did not get it legal. Also, and y'all can finish reading this. I'm going to give it to you for screenshots. Basically, it's just saying that what happened and that on the PCA, it was lied. I don't know that it goes into Dr. Drake's wife's, testimony, but this is the things that happened to him. They did not give him a lawyer. They kept on with him. They kept interrogating him until he admitted to it. Even somebody that knew him, and honestly, the night that man was murdered, I believe he was with the coroner, is what's in story. I know Lana with Truth and Transparency, I believe, that he was with the coroner. So, the coroner, that's crazy to me that this doctor was with the coroner and they still are accusing him of it. In these small towns, maybe they just needed to find someone. I'm not even sure why the wife was not questioned. It's really crazy, this case, and I just advise everyone to look it up. I'm not going to go through it all. It's already a 23-minute long YouTube. Really, I just wanted to get on here. I haven't posted in a while, and then just open people's eyes to other things that are going on. You have to look at past things when it involves the officers who are involved in investigating this case. This could be the Brady Giglio stuff. I'm not sure. I don't know what Ann Taylor's going to do with this. I would think she would already be done and said, hey, we need to dismiss this case, but it may not be that easy since it's a murder case. I'm not sure. I do not know the laws, in every state. I don't even know how they would all work out like this in Alabama. I would have to look it up. So this just gives people more of a perspective, a different look at it. We've looked at it the same way over and over, and a lot of people are indecisive, and I am. I'm not really sure exactly where I stand. I do not think he is full guilty. No, I do not think he walked in that house alone and did all this stuff. No, I do not think any of that. That would just be crazy. I also do not think somebody pulled up to murder these people either. They didn't just pull up in the driveway. Hey, y'all, get out, and do all this. I'm sorry, people get mad, whatever. I am a survivor of domestic violence. I have PTSD. I have a lot of wrong, going on. I'm telling you, the fight or flight thing comes out, not the shock phase. You're not shocked for that many hours. You would be scared to call anybody else to the house but police, your mama or Jesus. That's just my take on it. If it was 1 or 2 hours, maybe, but this long, I do not see how there's no, in right mind, there's no way that a jury should ever be okay with that. I know that the prosecution gets their people ready, but I think that on cross-examination, cross-questioning, whatever you call it, I know Bethany's gonna crumble, but I think Dylan will end up, or you're gonna be able to tell. I would hope that they weren't involved, but I'm sorry. There's too much suspicion going around that's involved in it. And if they're not, then I'm sorry. But they're grown, and you have to realize I'm not victim shaming. I'm just saying there are questions that should be asked. Also, other male DNA that were near the bodies in the sheath thing, wherever they were near the bodies. Why are you, they're unknown? No. Why didn't you do the same workup? Probably because the FBI is not going to do that workup on all of them, because what they did to get it was not. So if that's the case, then the whole PCA basically, I, I would think, should be thrown out. So there's all of this that comes with what's going on in this case. And if this does not get taken care of, if you don't think this is going to happen again, it's going to over and over. And what's scary to people is if Brian Kohberger's not it, then there's still a danger out there. Let me tell you now, there is still a danger out there. This is bigger than Brian Kohberger. If you have not realized that, I'm sorry. So that's all, y'all. I just wanted to bring awareness to everything else that's going on. Guilty people go to jail. Guilty people go free. Innocent people go to jail. And sometimes people that are halfway guilty either get the full punishment or they get off completely, whatever. At any rate, if he did not do this, I don't know that he's going to sue people, but I'm really not sure either, because there's an interview that, and I can't remember who played it last night. It was on Rory's Thou Shall Not Kill True Crime show. There's an interview where there is somebody, how he hangs out with an Asian girl all the time. That's not an incel to me. I have no idea where these people got this. They have not talked to his parents. They've not talked to family members. Just his aunt saying he was vegan. That does not make somebody an incel or any of this other stuff that even used to be FBI agents are saying. If that does not scare you, if you're not standing up to an FBI agent that should, to this day, whether they are retired or not, stand up for innocent until proven guilty, these are constitutional rights. That is very scary. If you don't think you can be up there on that stand tomorrow, Brian Kohberger is not rich. He is not a movie star. He is none of that. He was a normal, whatever, even if he had weird tendencies, everybody does, person. So if you don't think this can't be you tomorrow, you're crazy. If you don't think Touch DNA could be in Canada of something you've touched and something not come up, you've lost your mind. Please keep in mind, I'm not saying for people to just change their mind and say he's innocent. I am just saying that due process is due process. And if it was you, how would you feel? Put yourself in that person's position. If they're guilty, they're guilty. But look at everything going on and then try to decide, because I am still at a loss. Well, that's that. I will see y'all in a couple of days. Like I said, I'm going to try to do a live. I hope to see some people there. Have a great night. Happy August, everyone. And this is me trying to find my mouse, because my computer mouse acts a fool all the time and halfway does not work. So one more time, happy August, everyone. Sorry, I'm not going to edit that out. It's called True Life. It's what happened. Bye.